I thought guys only got close to their best friends until I realized what he was hiding wasn't shame, but the fear of rejection. Everyone warned me that college changes people. I just didn't expect the biggest change to be in my best friend's eyes when he looked at me. And I sure as hell didn't expect it to be the reason he stopped looking at me altogether. It started with silence. Not the kind that happens when two people are comfortable enough to just be. Not the lazy, familiar hush that fills the room when you're both studying, both scrolling, both existing without performance. No. This was the kind of silence that screamed. It screamed when Mason sat on the other side of our shared dorm room and avoided my eyes, when he started taking longer showers just to be away, when his laugh stopped reaching the corners of his mouth. It screamed when we used to joke about everything including girls and suddenly, he had nothing to say. We'd been best friends since junior year of high school. He was the first person I came out to not because I thought he was gay too, but because I trusted him. He didn't flinch. Didn't make it weird. Just said, "That's cool, man. Still kicking your ass in 2K though." That was Mason, simple, steady, loyal. Until he wasn't. At first, I thought it was stress. College classes hit different, fast-paced, competitive, professors who didn't care whether you slept or ate. We were both on academic scholarships. The pressure was real. But pressure didn't explain the way Mason started keeping his phone face down every time I walked into the room, or how he'd stop mid-sentence like he was afraid of slipping. I didn't push. I figured he'd talk when he was ready. But one night, something cracked. It was a Thursday. Cold, rainy, miserable. We had both just bombed our chem quiz and were lying on our separate twin beds, facing opposite walls. Neither of us had spoken since dinner. Then, out of nowhere, he said it. "I almost told you something yesterday." I sat up. "Yeah. What was it?" Long pause. A breath held hostage. "Forget it." "No, Mason. You don't get to drop that and bail." He didn't look at me. His jaw clenched. His fingers twisted the hem of his hoodie like it was a lifeline. "I think I'm in love with someone," he said finally, voice barely a whisper. Something fluttered not in my chest, but somewhere deeper. I wanted to be happy for him, but something felt off. "Okay. And that's a bad thing because..." He laughed, bitter and hollow. "Because it's you, Noah." My brain stopped. Just full-on blue screened. I stared at him. Mason. My best friend. My straight best friend. My painfully, football-watching, burping while he brushed his teeth best friend. And he was looking at me like I held the sun and the power to burn him. He stood quickly, grabbing his jacket. "I shouldn't have said that. Forget I said that. I'm sorry, Wait." He froze at the door, back still to me. I got up. Slowly. My heart felt like it had just been slammed in a locker. "You're seriously just gonna drop that and run?" He turned halfway. The look on his face was shattered. Like he'd built walls around this truth for years, and the second he let it out, it all collapsed. "I didn't say it to make you feel weird. I said it because it was killing me not to." "Why me?" I whispered. "Why now?" "Because," he said, voice cracking, "you were the first person who ever made me feel like being myself wasn't wrong. And because I thought maybe you'd understand." I did. Too well. I took a step forward. My chest was tight, like my ribs had turned to stone. "Why did you think I'd reject you?" "Because it's one thing to accept your gay best friend," he said, laughing bitterly again. "It's another to find out he's been in love with you. That's a different kind of weight." His words hit like a fist to the stomach. And suddenly I saw it every awkward moment he tried to hide. Every time our hands touched and he flinched, every time I changed shirts and caught him looking away too fast, every time I joked about being single and he stayed dead quiet. He hadn't been avoiding me out of disgust or boredom. He'd been protecting himself. Mason wasn't ashamed. He was scared. Scared that this would be the moment everything shattered. That I'd say the wrong thing. That I'd walk away. But I didn't. I stepped closer until we were just inches apart. Close enough to see the fear swimming in his eyes. The hope. The heartbreak already bracing for itself. "Hey," I said gently. "You're an idiot." His brows furrowed. "You think I haven't noticed?" I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it. All of it. He blinked. I reached out, slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. My hand landed on the back of his neck. Warm. Real. "Mason," I said, voice low, "you're not the only one who's been hiding something." His breath caught. Our lips didn't touch, not yet. But everything in that second felt charged. The air. The tension. The years of friendship turned into something more, unspoken but never unreal. He looked at me like he didn't dare believe it. "You mean that?" he asked, voice trembling. "Yeah," I said. "I do." The next moment wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a slow inhale. A soft lean forward. The faint brush of his lips against mine, cautious, like asking a question with a kiss. And I answered. When we finally pulled apart, Mason looked stunned. Like he'd just stepped into sunlight after years underground. "I've been so scared of this," he said. "I know. But also I've never wanted anything more." We stood there, just breathing, letting it sink in. Then, in typical Mason fashion, he tried to lighten the mood. "So. Does this mean we're officially the gay roommates everyone on our floor already thinks we are?" I laughed, really laughed for the first time in weeks. "Only if we start making out loud enough to confirm their suspicions." He flushed. And just like that, something between us clicked into place. The next morning felt like waking up on another planet. For the first time in years, I was seeing Mason not as the guy I'd shared chips and PlayStation controllers with, but as someone whose hand had been in mine just hours ago. And more than that, someone who wanted me back. But reality, as always, came knocking fast. I woke up to the sound of a door closing, Mason's, and the faint rustle of a jacket being zipped up. "You're leaving already?" I mumbled, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. He paused by the door. "Didn't want to wake you." "Too late," I said, sitting up. "Where are you going?" He looked like he wanted to say something honest but settled for safe instead. "Library. Big exam next week." His voice was even. Too even. I frowned. "You okay?" He hesitated. And that second of pause, that flicker in his eyes, told me everything. "Noah, last night was," he scratched the back of his neck. "I don't regret it. I'm still figuring it out. Everything." I nodded slowly. "You don't have to figure it all out today." He gave me a tight smile. "I'll be back later." Then he left. And the air felt colder. By lunchtime, it hit me, Mason wasn't just scared of losing me. He was terrified of losing himself, the version he'd shown the world, the version that fit neatly into his family's expectations, the one that didn't make waves. I tried not to spiral, but that was a losing battle. We hadn't defined anything. We hadn't even said what we were. Was it just a moment? An experiment? A mistake? Or had it been real to him, like it was for me? I texted him around 2. "Me, want to grab dinner later?" No reply. By 4, I saw on Find My Friends that he was still at the library. By 6, he was back in the dorm, but he didn't say a word. Just showered and climbed into bed with his headphones on. The silence stretched across the next day like a rope pulled taut. We didn't talk about what happened. Not even when we were brushing teeth next to each other. Not when we accidentally bumped shoulders in the hallway. But it was there. Simmering. Between every look. Every breath. By Sunday night, I couldn't take it anymore. "Mason," I said, louder than I meant to, "are we just gonna pretend nothing happened?" He was sitting at his desk, pretending to study. But I could see it in the way he gripped his pen like it was the only thing anchoring him to the floor. "I don't know what you want me to say. How about the truth?" He turned slowly. "The truth is," he said, "I'm scared, Noah." "Okay. Scared of how fast this happened. Scared that I finally admitted it and now it's real. That you'll wake up one day and realize I was just a phase." I blinked. "You think you're a phase?" He looked down. "I don't know. I've never done this before. Never even let myself think about it. And now you're all I think about." I stepped forward. "You've been all I think about for months." His breath caught. Again. "But Mason," I added, "I can't do this alone. If you're gonna be in this with me, I need you to be in it." He nodded slowly, then got up. And kissed me. Not with hesitation this time, but with certainty. Like he'd finally made a choice. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Quietly, but deeply. We didn't announce anything. We didn't need to. But our routines shifted. We sat closer. Shared more glances than jokes. His hand would sometimes brush mine under the cafeteria table, and I'd pretend it didn't send a lightning bolt through me. We still played 2K. Still argued over whether pineapple belonged on pizza. But we also talked more. Opened up. I learned that Mason had known for years buried it under football and girlfriends and late-night denials. He told me about the time he almost came out to his brother in high school, only to hear him use a slur 2 days later. He told me how he used to lie awake, wondering if he was broken. And in turn, I told him how I never expected love to look like him: messy, funny, hesitant, real. But the outside world wasn't as soft. Especially not when it came to two guys suddenly spending a lot more time alone together in a dorm where everyone noticed everything. It started with whispers in the hallway. Then came the DM. From someone anonymous. "How long you been taking it up the ass, Mason?" He didn't show me until the third message came in. He just sat on his bed, phone clenched in his hand, face pale. "They know," he said. "They think they know," I corrected. Big difference. Mason stared at the screen. "I can't do this." "Do what?" "Be gay. Be with me." He looked up. "No. I can't hide anymore. I'm tired." And so, we stopped hiding. It wasn't a grand coming out speech. No dramatic Facebook post. No rainbow flags. It was just Mason holding my hand in the middle of the quad. 1 second of bravery. And it was enough to change everything. Some people stared. Others smiled. A few, mostly the guys from the floor below, muttered slurs under their breath and tried to look tough. But no one touched us. And that mattered. One night, Mason's brother showed up. Unannounced. Drove 2 hours from their hometown just to check on him. I walked into the dorm and froze at the door. There he was, 6 feet 2 inches, tattooed, arms crossed, scowl locked on me like I'd personally broken his childhood toys. "You're the one who turned my brother gay." Mason jumped between us before I could even speak. "No one turned me into anything," he snapped. "I've always been this way." His brother scoffed. "Bullshit. You were fine before." "I wasn't fine," Mason said. "I was miserable. And Noah, he makes me happy." The room went silent. Then his brother exhaled. Long, heavy. I just didn't see it coming, he said finally, voice softer. Guess I thought you'd end up with a cheerleader or something. Mason smiled. I did. He just doesn't wear skirts. That got a reluctant laugh. And slowly painfully things began to heal. There were still bad days. Days Mason would get quiet again. Days I'd second guess if we were moving too fast. Days the world felt too loud and too cruel. But every time, we came back to each other. Like gravity. One night, we lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling like we used to back in junior year, before we even knew what we were. I used to think I'd die alone, Mason said quietly. Me too. Now. He turned to face me. I think I could survive anything, as long as you're next to me. I blinked hard. Guess we're both idiots then, I whispered. Because I'd die for you. He reached out, brushed his thumb against my cheek. Don't, he said. Live for me instead. Fall break arrived just when we needed it. The pressure of midterms, stares in the cafeteria, hushed hallway gossip, it all began to blur into static. So when Mason invited me to come home with him for a few days, I didn't hesitate. I figured maybe, just maybe, we could escape the noise. But the truth was, you can't run from things still alive inside you. The drive was quiet, but not awkward. He held my hand at red lights. Played our old playlists. Sang slightly off-key just to make me laugh. It felt almost normal. Until we pulled up to his childhood home. It was a one-story house with a crooked mailbox, wind chimes on the porch, and a well-worn basketball hoop in the driveway. His mom was waiting at the door. And she didn't know. He'd told me he was going to do it over break. That he wanted to say it himself, face to face. But watching her run down the steps and throw her arms around him, I could see the terror flicker behind his smile. She hadn't seen the change in him yet, but she would. That first night, he introduced me simply as Noah, my best friend from college. I didn't correct him. Neither did he. At dinner, I told her how Mason saved my grade in calculus. She told me he used to cry over multiplication tables in second grade. We laughed. She hugged me after the dishes were done. Said I had a nice smile and kind eyes. And for a few fleeting hours, I imagined what it'd be like to be her son's secret forever. That night, in his old bedroom, posters still on the wall, trophies still collecting dust, Mason couldn't sleep. He sat at the edge of the bed, staring at his childhood dresser like it held all the answers. I don't know how to do it, he whispered. I sat up beside him. You just say it. He shook his head. You don't get it. My mom, she still thinks I'm gonna marry some girl from youth group. She cried when my cousin said she was atheist. He laughed bitterly. She cried, Noah. Over atheism. What's she gonna do when her only son tells her he's gay? I took his hand. She'll still love you. You don't know that. You're right. I don't. But I believe it. He looked at me, tears threatening. You're the bravest person I know, I said. But you don't have to be brave alone. He nodded, breathing shaky. And the next morning, he told her. We were sitting at the kitchen table. She was sipping tea, flipping through a church bulletin. And he just said it. Mom, I'm in love with Noah. Her hands froze. She didn't look up right away. Just stared at the paper like the words hadn't registered. Then she put her tea down, very slowly. When she finally met his eyes, hers were already filled with tears. You're what? I'm gay, Mom. The words hum like smoke. I've known for a while. I was scared to say it. But I'm not anymore. She glanced at me. I didn't move. She looked back at him. Her voice trembled. Is this because of college? He shook his head. This is because of me. I've always known. I just didn't want to lose you. She stood. You could never lose me. And then she hugged him. Tight. I saw his shoulders crumble under the relief. Like he'd been holding his breath for years and finally exhaled. She pulled back and cupped his face. I don't understand everything yet. But I love you. And if Noah makes you happy, then I love him too. I blinked. Then she hugged me. And I let her. Later that day, Mason took me to the lake near his house. The one he used to bike to as a kid. We skipped rocks, lay in the grass, watched the clouds shift overhead. I thought that was gonna break me, he said. But it didn't. He smiled. No. It healed me. When we returned to campus, something had changed. Not in the world, it was still messy and cruel and curious. But in us. We walked differently. Spoke louder. Smiled more. It didn't matter that people still stared. We had nothing to hide anymore. And people adjusted. Some slowly. Some not at all. One guy from our psych class unfollowed both of us on Instagram and never said a word again. Another brought us brownies the next day and said, "Love is love, bro. These have weed in them." Spoiler, they didn't. But they were amazing. Professor Adler, who always seemed so cold, called me aside after class and quietly said, "It takes courage to be visible. I'm proud of you." I almost cried right there. But the biggest surprise came from Mason's dad. He called one night a week after we got back. Mason stared at the screen, frozen, then answered. I only heard one side of the conversation. "Yeah, Mom told you." "Yeah, it's true." He paced. "No, I'm not joking, I've never been more serious about anything in my life." A pause. Long, heavy. Then Mason's voice dropped. "Thanks, Dad. That means everything." He hung up. Then turned to me. He said he's proud of me. Said he wishes he'd had the guts to be himself at my age. I blinked. Wait, your dad's? He didn't say it. But I think he didn't have to. That night, we kissed under the string lights outside the campus library. It wasn't planned. We were just walking, hands brushing, and then I stopped him. "I love you," I said. He froze. His eyes widened. Like he'd waited years to hear it. "I love you too." And he kissed me like he'd waited forever to say it. There were still bad days. Still people who whispered. Still scars that hadn't healed. But for every look of judgment, there was a friend who stayed. A professor who smiled. A stranger who nodded in quiet solidarity. We weren't alone. And for the first time in our lives, we felt it. Winter came. And with it, snow. We built a snowman with matching rainbow scarves. Someone knocked it over that night. We rebuilt it the next day. Taller. Stronger. Together. Spring semester arrived with early sunlight and the smell of fresh-cut grass on the quad. By then, we had learned how to navigate the world not fearlessly, but honestly. Mason and I had fallen into a rhythm, something steady and unshakable. His hand in mine no longer felt like a secret. It felt like home. But life, as always, doesn't let you coast for long. We were sitting in a Queer Student Alliance meeting one Thursday evening, our first one, actually. Mason had been hesitant. "Feels like putting a neon sign on my head," he'd joked. I told him it already was neon, only now, it was his sign. The room was full of soft-spoken, nervous people like us. First-timers. Quiet veterans. A girl in a denim jacket named Riley said, "I came out last week and my sister blocked me. So I'm here instead." There was clapping. Some tears. Someone passed around candy. Mason didn't say much that night. But on the walk home, he whispered, that felt like breathing. Then came April. A boy in our dorm named Julian, sweet, shy, closeted, was outed by someone who'd hacked his texts. Screenshots spread like wildfire. We found him crying behind the dining hall dumpster. Mason dropped to his knees, hugged him, and didn't say a word. Later that night, Julian texted me. "Tell Mason thank you. He made me feel like I wasn't garbage." I read it out loud. Mason said nothing. Just smiled, soft and proud. But not all stories ended with support. One evening, while walking back from the gym, we passed a group of frat guys huddled near a parking lot. As we walked by, hand in hand, one of them yelled, "Faggots don't belong here." It was loud. Cruel. Too fast to ignore. Mason froze. I felt him tense like a live wire. I pulled his hand tighter, ready to keep walking. But he turned. Faced them. His voice didn't shake. "Then I guess you're lost. Because I do belong here." And we walked away. He didn't sleep much that night. But in the morning, there was a sticky note on our door. No name. Just 5 words. "You two make me braver." Finals week came and went. Stress took over. Caffeine flowed like blood. But somehow, our little corner of the world remained intact. At one point, I caught Mason writing something in his notebook, eyes locked, biting his lip in concentration. "You studying for chem?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. Something else." He didn't let me see. Not yet. Then came the night of the campus pride rally. Our first. Colorful lights bathed the courtyard. There were chalk rainbows on the pavement. A huge banner hung overhead. "You deserve to exist fully." Mason stood beside me, nervous as hell, bouncing his knee. "You sure?" I asked. "We don't have to speak." He looked at me. "I do." He stepped up to the mic. "I used to think being in love with your best friend was the worst thing that could happen to you," he said. "I thought I'd lose him. I thought I'd lose myself." He glanced at me. But then I realized, it wasn't love that was scary. It was the lie. He took a shaky breath. "I'm not scared anymore." The crowd erupted. Some people cried. Someone shouted, "We love you, Mason." He came down, cheeks flushed, and I kissed him. Right there in front of everyone. No hesitation. In the days that followed, we got emails. Notes slipped under our door. Random high fives from people we didn't even know. The campus, in its own clumsy way, had made room for us. But life outside that campus was still waiting. Summer came fast. Too fast. We were packing up the dorm room when Mason suddenly stopped and held up a folded piece of paper. He handed it to me. It was what he'd been writing during finals. A letter. To me. "Noah. You were the first person I ever told the truth to. Not just about who I love but who I am. I thought I had to earn love by hiding. By performing. I thought I'd lose everything if anyone saw the real me. But then you looked at me like I was worth being seen. Every time I laughed too loud, every time I froze in fear, every time I doubted myself, you stayed. And I've never had that before. So I want to say it, clear and loud, so there's no doubt left in the world. I love you. And I want to keep loving you. Not just through this year, or the next, but through every version of myself I'm still growing into. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me anyway. Always. Mason." I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just tackled him into a hug and held him until the floor felt like sky. When the day finally came for us to go back to our homes, separate towns, separate realities, we stood by his car, holding each other, not saying goodbye. Because it wasn't goodbye. It was. Text me when you get home. Call me before bed. Come visit in 2 weeks, or I'll drive to you first. It was hope. It was love. It was real. On the drive back, I replayed everything. From the first awkward silence in our dorm room to the first tearful confession to the first public kiss. I thought about how easy it would have been to miss all of this. If I hadn't asked. If he hadn't stayed. If we'd both kept hiding. And I realized. Some people fall in love by accident. But we fought for it. And we're still fighting. And that's what makes it worth everything. 1 year later. I moved into a small off-campus apartment. Mason did too. Different buildings, for now. But only 3 blocks apart. We still argue about pizza toppings. Still binge terrible Netflix documentaries. Still hold hands in public. Sometimes people still stare. Sometimes we still get scared. But we never go back to hiding. Because the fear of rejection can only win if love stays quiet. And ours never will again. The end. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.